This is Caramel Action Micro. This might be the hardest game ever made. I know that's a ridiculous thing to say. I know I know when I say that I'm gonna get a million different actually there's games that are literally made to designed to be impossible. Like that obviously doesn't count. Like for the sake of a reasonable discussion, that doesn't count. Like then also there's like fan maps that are like ridiculously hard. There's like optional challenges in games that are ridiculously hard. We're talking about like difficulty of finishing the main game. So this is the casual reference point, right? We gotta start here. This is pretty much as I expected, right? Like Souls-likes is what most people would probably think of first. There is an argument to be made that something like Caramel Action, maybe Caramel Action in particular, I think certainly when you start talking, when you narrow it to indie games, Caramel Action is maybe the hardest that I'm aware of, because it's hard in so many different ways. Yeah, this game has precise timings. Like it expects you to have good execution and be able to press buttons at precise times. But then there's also completely different types of difficulty. Like this is also a strategy game. Like you can think of it as a very fast-paced strategy game. It feels a lot like chess, like speed chess, but like even faster, right? Like it feels like ultra speed chess in a way. Like you're thinking ahead, you're constantly imagining all of the different ways that the game could screw you, and you're constantly trying to choose the one possible move that like threads the needle between all of these different universes where you get checkmated. And these enemies are trying to checkmate you. Like they are trying to checkmate you. I can promise you that, and we'll get back to that later. But yeah, I feel like I'm constantly using my entire brain when I'm playing this game. My execution skills and my strategy skills are both being pushed to the limit. And on top of that, there's a different type of difficulty, because there are some really unintuitive things about this game. There are some really surprising consequences of how little implementation details affect certain things. And you kind of have to be a scientist, right? Like I think of this as science difficulty. Like you have to do experiments. You have to come up with theories about how things actually work under the hood and use that knowledge to understand the game more deeply, and then exploit that understanding to make better decisions. At one point, I was literally stepping through the gameplay footage frame by frame to try to understand how something worked. And like, now this type of difficulty, you won't have to do this yourself when you play the game, because it's understood now because I figured it out, and I'm going to explain it all in this video. But, it was a major component of the difficulty of beating it for the first time. On top of all of that, it's an extremely punishing game. You die in one hit in this game every single time, no matter what. There are backups, right? Like it's not like every time you make a mistake, you're dead, but if you make a mistake critical enough that you actually take a hit, you are dead. And the game starts to move pretty fast. Like it's only like a 7-minute long run, but it's so dense that that's like so many different decisions. And if one of those goes wrong enough, you're dead. Okay. So how did I overcome all of this? So the problem with making a video about explaining this game in particular is because it's so random, every stage plays out so differently every time, right? I can't just pull up specific points in the run and show you like, this is what I was doing before. Then I started doing this, and that like solved a big part of the run. Like that's just not how it works. Like every stage is completely different every time. So instead, what I have done is I've broken the process of getting good at this game down into 5 steps or 5 stages of learning. And this is very general learning about the game that eventually made me consistent enough that I could, anticipate every disaster and avoid it, right? So stage one of learning this game is the absolute basics. Pretty obvious stuff, but I'll explain how the game works at a very basic level. So it's pretty simple. You have to pick up these gold bombs, and that spawns the stairs. You get to the stairs and you exit the level. But of course the enemies are in your way. Red guy walks toward you, and when he touches you, he kills you. The green guy throws grenades at you if you're close enough, so that kind of forces you to keep moving, usually. The blue guy just blasts you when you're in line of sight. And then the turret, it also blasts you when you're in line of sight, but it blasts 4 times in a row. There's also less of a delay when the turret shoots you. It shoots you immediately when you get into its line of sight. Whereas with blue, there's a little bit of warning. Now, I said you will always die in one hit, which is true, but it's inevitable that you will get checkmated in this game. You will get into a situation where you know you are going to die before it happens. And for those situations, you do have bombs. At any time, if you have a bomb, you can press the bomb button and it will clear a large space around you. And basically, you will be out of the situation that you were in, right? And it's, if you've played shmups, it's just like that. And then you also have 8 cherry bombs, which I'm not using here, but you'll see later. They have to be used preemptively. They're different than the regular bombs because you can't just use them to get out of a tight spot. You're vulnerable while you're throwing them, and it's quite a long delay between when you decide to throw one and when you actually throw one. But they can clear out a pretty large area if you plan it correctly and anticipate a good time to use one ahead of time. It's basically your equivalent of the green guy's grenades, right? Once you figure out all of that stuff, figure out the absolute basics, you can, get a few stages in at least. But that's not going to get you very far. You need to figure out some kind of routing. So let me switch to my first full clear of the game. So stage 2 of learning is the basic routing. So I said that the exit spawns after you get all the gold bombs, but here's a question. Where does the exit spawn? Because unlike the entrance spawn, this is actually not completely random. When you spawn into a level, it puts you in a pretty random spot. I mean, there's a set number of spots, but it's decided randomly. But the exit stairs, where those exit stairs appear after you pick up the last gold bomb, is not random at all. The vertical position of the stairs is random, but it turns out that the left versus right, whether these stairs appear on the left versus the right side of the screen, is completely based on where you're standing when you pick up that last bomb. And it's not that important for level 1. So level 1 is pretty straightforward. You don't really need, like, the obvious routing decisions kind of work for stage 1. It's a good level to just let you learn the basics without having to think about that. But then stage 2, it starts to matter a lot more. So here I am spawned in at the bottom right next to this bomb. So the route is pretty obvious, right? I'm going to get this bomb, and then I'm going to go up here and get this bomb, and then I'm going to loop back in here and get these 2 bombs. Sometimes it's a lot less obvious. Sometimes you're spawning up here, or over here or something. So you have to have a sort of dynamic idea of how to route the level. And it turns out that there's something very strange about whether the stairs spawn on the left versus the right. So if you kind of look at the columns on this grid, you might think that, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like, if you're in this section, this kind of almost half of the screen, then it's definitely going to spawn, the stairs are definitely going to spawn on the right. And if you're on, like, this kind of half of the screen, the stairs are definitely going to spawn on the left, right? But it turns out, and then maybe who knows what happens in this middle column, maybe it's like split down the middle or whatever. It turns out that the 3 columns in the middle also spawn the stairs on the left. It's if you're anywhere here to the right. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the rightmost 7 columns. So most of the screen is actually going to spawn the stairs on the left. So you really want to, it helps a lot to get to the stairs as soon as possible after they spawn, which means it's really helpful to pick up the bomb in this kind of space, right? Especially like in the middle of the screen, because then no matter if the stairs spawn at the top or the bottom, you're relatively close to them. Whereas if you pick up the bomb like up here, you've got kind of a long walk still down here to the stairs. So level 2 is like the perfect level where it's like the level where you really have to learn this, right? Because if you start up here and then you go in here, pick up these 2 bombs first and then loop that, because that's kind of the intuitive thing. These are closer. And then you loop back around out this way, pick up this bomb, and then pick up this bomb last. Then you're likely to have to loop all the way back up to here to the stairs. And all of this is complicated, by the way, by the fact that the bombs start moving. After you've picked up, when there's only 2 bombs left, the remaining ones start moving. Okay, so they're just kind of moving around like one grid space at a time in random directions. So that complicates everything. But it turns out that in most cases, it's best in level 2 to start with this bomb down here. Even if you start all the way up here, it's best to go down here first, get this bomb, and loop all the way back around and get this one last, and just try your best to pick it up past this vertical line to the right. Okay, so that's the kind of basic idea of what we're doing with the routing, right? So let's quickly go through through the rest of the levels in loop 1 and talk about what makes each level interesting and different. So, here vertically, these turrets are covering the entire vertical space that you have to use, and this is a pretty constrained space. There's these long vertical lines where you're threatened by like the blue guys as well. So like, in this column, you're threatened by a blue guy anywhere in the column. In this space, you're threatened by a blue guy anywhere in the column. In this space, you're threatened by a blue guy anywhere in the column. And like if a blue guy is shooting you down this column and the turret is still right here and facing down, you've only got one little space of cover, like right here, right, to potentially be safe in. So you've got smaller cover spaces in a way, and you've got these big lines, these big unsafe, or these big potentially unsafe spaces. The routing through this stage again is relatively straightforward. Here's a level where like it's even more turret focused. Like this is a completely turret focused level almost. This is where it really makes sense to learn to use these cherry bombs like I just did. I just took out 2 turrets with the cherry bomb. And if you're trying to just get through the first loop for the first time, you definitely want to just cherry bomb both sets of turrets. Use 2 cherry bombs here. This stage, this stage I call the Hall of Hell. This is like a blue focused level. It's focused on the blue guys, right? And it totally leans into that with this huge open space where like a ton of blue guys are just trying to fire at you down this big open space all the time, right? And I am for some reason in my first clear of the first loop that we're watching right now, I am not using the cherry bombs, but it makes sense to use the cherry bombs here. But this is a really tricky level because it focuses on the blue guys who are so threatening. Then this level is a bit of a break. It focuses on the red guys in a similar way. It really leans into the red guys, but there's kind of a trick to it where, I mean, apparently I haven't really figured out the trick at this point, but if you were doing a good job of routing and figuring out your routes through the level, you would have figured out by now that you can kind of just loop them around the level. Man, I used a lot of bombs because I hadn't figured out this trick yet at this point. But yeah, we'll see it later when we get into my my final clear. And then, so if level 4 was kind of turret focused, level 5 was blue focused, level 6 was red focused. This is an interesting twist. This final level of the loop is ghost focused. So if you've noticed this entire time, these graves spawn after you've like killed after you've been in a level for a certain amount of time. Killing enemies spawns these graves, and then after a little while, a ghost will pop out of the grave and start following you around. And the twist in this level is that the ghosts are here. Those graves are here from the beginning in 2 different corners, and the game leans into this strange decision to focus on the ghosts in this level by having this corner that you're going to get trapped in where these ghosts are just going to naturally converge on you as you're in this tiny little tight space. But there's a trick here, which I just showed, which is that the cherry bombs, and actually all bombs, but the cherry bombs push the ghosts. So this is a really good thing to plan for in your route, to push the ghosts away with your cherry bomb and get out of that space safely. And yeah, that's the first loop. And like I said, a bunch of people have cleared the first loop at this point, but now after the first loop, you get into 2-1 and you might notice that it's immediately completely impossible. Like every single 1-all run that I've seen dies in 2-1. Every single one. And this is surprising because like the game is extremely random, right? Like you'd think at least one person would get lucky for 2-1 and get a relatively easy level and get through it, especially with like extra bombs or whatever to like spam. But when you actually try to play 2-1, you very quickly realize that this is not surprising at all that everyone dies in 2-1 after getting the 1-all, because it's insanely hard. Like even a top 1% luckiest version of this stage is hard. This is such a massive difficulty spike from the first loop, which is already hard. Like only a handful of people have cleared the first loop so far, but this is so much harder. The second loop is so much harder. It's crazy. Like if you've played cave shmups, like you have an idea, right? Like if you've played, Dodonpachi, and you've even seen the second loops in those games, like you have an idea of how much harder it is. But I feel like the jump here might be even more extreme. It's kind of crazy. Like, I think clearing 2-1 alone, especially like getting consistent at it, is harder than the entire first loop combined. It's harder than getting consistent at the entire first loop as a whole. It's just crazy. It took, this is just such a brick wall. It took several major breakthroughs of understanding of this game for the second loop to feel even remotely possible for me. So with that in mind, let's move on to stage 3 of the learning process, which is the first breakthroughs that I made in to try to understand how I could possibly beat stage 2-1, which is kind of advanced enemy stuff, advanced understanding of how the enemies work, right? So the first thing that I figured out, which I really should have figured out and helps to know if you're just doing the first loop even, is that you can walk straight through the green guys. I didn't know that. I didn't know that when I had never tested that, and before I did the first loop. You can walk straight through the green guys. The only thing that's threatening about the green guys is their grenades. Okay, so that alone saves a lot of time. It lets you get through levels faster when you're not stopping to kill all the green guys all the time. And it lets you leave green guys alive when they're in a spot that you're leaving, an area that you're leaving, right? If you're leaving a certain part of the screen and you're not going to come back to that part of the screen, it's good to leave the green guys alive there because they're not going to threaten you while you're going around the whole rest of the screen. And the alternative is to kill the green guys, and then they're just going to respawn like a few seconds later, and likely they're going to respawn somewhere worse. So not only does it save time to skip killing green guys, it and enemies in general, it also like helps keep the rest of the screen clear. So that's a really important thing to understand. The next thing that I came to understand is the red guy movement. So the reds, I said that the reds just walk toward you, right? But what exactly does that mean? Like, they usually have two different choices for how to walk toward you. Like, how are they going to choose when they could keep going down or they could go right? And both of those options bring them closer to you. The answer to this is, it seems really complicated and I don't fully understand it yet. I developed a very strong intuition over time, and with a lot of practice, I developed a strong intuition for which situations they tend to move in specific ways. Like, like around this corner here, they tend to hug the corner. Like they're not going to walk out here straight. They're going to step here and then hug the corner by going up, by doing 2 extra turns, right? Which is a little surprising, but often they seem to hug corners. I can't describe all the exact details, but over time with a lot of practice, I figured out more or less how they move. But there seems to be some randomness in it. There might be some rule. There might be some clear rule about how they move that I'm completely missing, but it's hard to figure out because there seems to be some level of randomness, or at least weird extra complications with the rules. Like sometimes they seem to just do a random turn in a completely different direction. So it's really hard to pin down, but that was a big part of the improvement process, was just getting used to how the reds move so that I can confidently walk past them. And again, save the time, get through the levels faster, save the time that I would have otherwise had to spend killing them. Which is not that much time, but it really not that much time per shot, right? A shot doesn't take very long, but that time really adds up. And this game is just crazy in how much pressure it applies. These enemies are relentless. The level just gets harder so fast. Like once the ghosts start spawning, it just becomes so hard to even just stay alive and do anything in the level. So you really, really are incentivized to get through it as quickly as possible. So every second counts. Every enemy that you can avoid killing, even just for a little bit, even if you can just avoid killing it until you're at the opposite side of the screen, like that saves time. You're delaying the spawn of the next enemies by keeping these alive longer. So that's a big thing that I figured out. And then similarly, I can't exactly describe, but like walking close to the blue enemies, even when they're moving really fast, like in the second loop. Every enemy moves faster in the second loop. Even when the blues are moving quite a bit faster, how to walk close to them and get around them without killing them. And especially this matters at the end of the level. One thing that you really have to learn to get anywhere in the second loop is how to rush to the stairs, when to decide, okay, it's time to just rush to the stairs. Like for most of the level, you generally want to avoid getting into a situation where you're surrounded by enemies and like could not survive in the level for like 2 additional seconds. But at the very end, you kind of have no choice. Like in the first and the second loop, more enemies start spawning after you spawn the stairs, and they tend to spawn around the stairs. So, yeah, at some point you just have no choice but to rush the exit, and knowing at what point it's best to just change your strategy and start rushing the exit and stop killing stuff is a big part of the difficulty of the second loop. And yeah, part of that involves like walking, just barely dodging a bunch of blue guys like who are right next to you, right, guarding the exit. So after all this stuff, kind of at the end of this stage 3 of this learning process, I felt a lot more confident. I could get through, it took a lot of bombs sometimes. It took a lot of bombs on average, but I could get through 2-1, I could get through 2-2, I could get all the way up to 2-5 fairly often. But it just didn't seem like enough. Like 2-5 is such a difficulty wall. Like even still for me, it costs like multiple of both types of bombs. It costs like at least two cherry bombs and 2 regular bombs to get through just 2-5. Which means you now have to get a lot more consistent to get through 2-5, knowing that you have to get a lot more consistent at the rest of the game to conserve those resources. So at this point, after I got through like stage 3 of the learning process, I kind of just stopped and went back. I slowed down and I started looking at I decided I'm just going to look at every suspicious detail in the game, right? I'm going to look for weird patterns in every mechanic, okay? And immediately when I started doing this, I discovered something extremely helpful. Okay, so this is the beginning of stage 4 of the learning process, which honestly, this is another thing that it helps to know a lot sooner. It will help you get a 1-all, a first loop clear of this game, if you know this long before I did, which is how to manage the ghosts. Okay, how exactly the ghosts spawn. So I said that the ghosts spawn, they start spawning after a while, when you kill an enemy after you've been in the level for a while, which is correct. But so the way that the ghost works specifically, there's a very powerful trick to it. And I'm not sure if it works this way on purpose, but the ghosts start spawning after you hit 45 seconds in a level, okay? So, 15 seconds in the level. Once the timer gets down to 45 seconds, the way that it works is I assume the game sets a flag saying, okay, the next time you kill an enemy now, a ghost is going to spawn from that enemy. Or a grave is going to spawn, and that grave is going to spawn a ghost. But the tricky thing is, like right now, the timer has gone down past 45, but that flag has been set to spawn a ghost next time, but I haven't killed an enemy yet. So if I were to walk through the stairs right now, and without killing another enemy, which is not going to happen, I'm pretty sure I'm going to kill this turret right now. But anyway, if I were to somehow do that, after the timer ticked down past 45, go into the next level, the first enemy I kill in the next level is going to have a ghost. And it's very easy to assume for a long time playing this game. You could play this game for many, many, many hours, and I did. Just assuming that it was random, or I didn't know exactly how it worked. It seemed a little suspicious, and that's why it was the first thing that I looked into when I started looking into the mechanics more deeply. But it's very easy to play for a long time without realizing this. You can know for sure how to not get the immediate ghost spawn in the next level. So yeah, like if you let it tick down to 45 or below, and then you walk through without killing an enemy, you will get a ghost immediately in the next level. And you can just control that by killing something like I do right there. So there, it spawned the grave right there. And so now when I go into the next level, I'm safe. But the next ghost is actually going to happen at 35 seconds. So if you then wait until the 35 second mark, then you're going to have to kill it again. And there's another one at like 30 seconds. So it gets really complicated. Like usually you want to try to exit the level, but like between 35 and 45 seconds left. But yeah, starting to control the ghost spawns like that makes a massive difference. And actually, it makes a difference for 2-5 in particular, because an immediate ghost in that level is just way too much to handle on top of everything else. Like Level 2-5, especially, level 2-1 and 2-5 are very overwhelming, and usually you're just rushing to the exit at the end, and you might not have a lot of easy control over like whether you can get that grave down and, you know, have that flag set up properly for the next level. But it's convenient that the levels following those, 2-2 and 2-6, the levels immediately following those really hard levels are much easier. So it's not catastrophic if you have to finish those levels without fixing the ghost timer. It's not catastrophic. And the levels immediately before those really hard levels are also relatively easy and give you a chance to set that up properly so that the hard levels won't have instant ghosts. So with that figured out, my confidence went up tremendously. It started to feel possible to get the 2-all, and I was more and more getting the hang over time of how to leave enemies up for as long as possible, but do it safely so that I don't get into a situation where I'm surrounded, and where are the safe spots to stop and clear out all of the enemies that are following me before I get into a really hairy situation. Like in 2-1, you kind of have to, this choke point is really tricky. Crossing over the level at the top is really tricky. This is not a good example because I had to bomb and so I destroyed some of the geometry, but like you kind of have to, around the top of this area, you often just have to run past stuff. But then if you stop over here where you're blocked from the right, if you stop somewhere around here and clear all the enemies that are following you and all the enemies above you, then that usually works out really well to then come in here and get in and push into the middle without that many enemies up and not that many enemies on top of you. And usually it's pretty safe to go from like over here around the top to here. If you time it right, it's safe to get to that point and then wait to clear like right here. So that's like a lot of time that you're not killing every enemy. You're just running past as many reds as possible. So yeah, as I figured this stuff out, it became clear that a 2-all is possible. But I am going to talk about a 5th stage of the learning process, okay? Before I show my 2-all clear, I'll talk about the 5th stage a little bit, because I was kind of halfway into the 5th stage when I got the clear. I was starting to figure out this next layer, which may or may not be the final layer. There may be more stuff to it, but the 5th stage is extra advanced enemy stuff, I guess. Like, there are some really weird things that you can do, and I'm actually going to minimize this, and I'm going to pull up the game and just demonstrate this first one. You can walk directly through red guys, okay? And this I'm calling this stage 5, and I'm saying, like, you don't really need this to get a 2-all. It could help. It could help, but it's not necessary. This is like extra advanced stuff for like pushing to the next frontier. But I do think understanding some of this stuff at least helped me to know what to pay attention to and helped me in my decision making for getting the clear. So this is the final frontier of the game. Maybe you can walk through red guys like that, and the way to do it is, well, you can't do it when there's 2 on top of each other. The way to do it is you wait until you're both like equally apart on 2 different grid spaces, and then you just move at the same time that they start moving towards you. And it gets increasingly difficult on like the second loop because they start moving faster, so it gets more precise. But you can pretty reliably on the first loop do that if you know how to do it and if you practice it. Now, it's really hard to implement it on the fly though. It's really hard to notice in the moment and get lined up for it properly and everything. But the reason that this works is that, this is my assumption, but the hitboxes are only active for like a few frames when they get to a new tile. Like when they're perfectly lined up in the middle of a grid space, that is when their hitbox is active, and then it deactivates, and you can. So I'm guessing this is like an intentional piece of tech or something. I'm not exactly sure. You can take advantage of the fact that their hitbox deactivates and get through them really precisely like that. So that's one thing, and then the other thing is blue guys, and not only blue guys but the turrets as well. So I said that blue guys fire at you, and the cannons fire at you when you're in line of sight, right? But what exactly does line of sight mean? Okay, like you might think that because I'm like right now I'm like peeking out, you know, my part of my hitbox is in this column and part of my hitbox is in this column. So if there were a blue guy up here in this column, he would shoot at me, and if there were a blue guy up here in this column, he would also shoot at me. That's not actually how it works. You are at any given time in exactly one column. The game considers you to be in one column. And for some strange reason, the way that this works is the even numbered columns. So this is an odd number. This is column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So here I'm between columns 8 and 9. So the even numbered column 8 is always going to be the one that if I'm exactly halfway between, it is always going to be consider me to be in column 8 in the even column. Okay, so if there were a blue guy up here, he would fire me. And if there's a blue guy up here or down here, he can see me peeking out, but he would not fire me because I'm considered to be in this column. And this exact halfway point matters a lot more than you would think, because the game is actually constantly snapping you to that halfway point. When you're just walking in one direction, it looks like the grid doesn't really matter. But whenever you do something else, so like when you shoot or when you turn to go a different direction, it is always going to snap you to the nearest allowable spot, which is always going to be either on the grid, lined up with the grid spaces, or lined up with the halfway point. So if you watch when I turn, so like here I'm about to turn, if you watch frame by frame, you can see actually that it snapped me backwards here. So if you enhance, I don't have the technology to enhance here, but enhance on your end by putting your face right up on the screen and look at my hitbox, which is it's not actually exactly the hitbox, I think, but look at my green circle on the floor that's showing you exactly where I am. I am past the tile. I'm beyond where I would be lined up with this column now. But as soon as I press down, it's going to snap me backwards. Sorry, I accidentally pressed frame backwards. Okay, as soon as I press down in the gameplay footage, see, it's actually snapping me to the left when I advance forward in this footage. Even though the left is kind of the direction I came from, but it's snapping me backwards to the nearest tile or half tile, right? And so you spend a lot of time on half tiles. Again, it's really hard to take advantage of it in real time, but the more you think about this and the more you understand this, the more you realize you actually can. Like, a big part of the difficulty of this game is just freeing up your attention, right? It takes so much attention to look at everything that's happening on the screen so fast all the time, and the more stuff you don't have to think about because you can predict ahead of time, okay, they're not going to be able to shoot me from here. I don't have to look at them right now. The more of that stuff you can figure out, the more attention you have to dedicate to other things and to make, that is going to make a big difference in your decision making, just freeing up attention. And so, yeah, stuff like this really matters a lot. You can really abuse that knowledge. With all that in mind, let's watch my my ultimate 2-all, my ultimate clear of the game. How I used all of this knowledge and practice at once. Like, it's just there's a lot more details that I didn't even that I did not explain yet. But yeah, so the first loop. I mean, again, the second loop is just so much harder that you kind of have to be able to go through the entire first loop without using bombs, right? You kind of have to conserve as many resources as possible for the second loop. I think I use one cherry bomb in the first loop, and that's it. I don't use any of my, my backup, my get out of jail free bombs. And I feel like that's kind of just mandatory just because the second loop is so much harder. So I am making the first loop quite a bit harder for myself, but it's still relatively easy for me at this point, having practiced loop 2 so much. Like, this is just the easier version of these stages. But yeah, I'm using all my routing. I'm thinking about the ghost timer, right? So like right now I'm waiting to kill at that 45-second mark to get that grave to spawn. And yeah, there's where I use one cherry bomb, but I'm not using another one here. And this actually makes things pretty tricky for me in this run in particular. Like, I knew that guy was about to turn and the blue guy was coming from the other direction. I kind of had to use that one little space of cover here in an awkward way. And yeah, that took quite a while. Like, we're already down to 40 seconds left, which is ideally I'd be exiting the level by this point, but I had to take quite a while to conserve that one cherry bomb, which I ended up not needing in this particular run. But in general, you do have to conserve those resources. All right, 1-5. This is the hardest level in the first loop. I think I got through it without using a bomb. Or using any resources. It's just a brutal. You learn in this level. This level really teaches you how to, take step one grid space at a time. Like you shoot down one column and then step into the next column because there's probably a bullet coming up at you, right? And then shoot down that column and then shoot into the next column and then step into the next column. Shoot in that column, step in the next column, shoot, step. And then that kind of slowly thins out the pack of the blue guys. Here you can see the routing in this stage. Like you can kind of just get all of the red guys in one spot and loop around the whole level. And then this level, the routing is pretty complicated and dynamic. And I'll talk about that after in the second part of this discussion. But it's very complicated routing. But this bottom left corner presents a real challenge, and the middle of the screen also presents a real challenge. If enemies kind of group together in that space, it can create a lot of different complicated possibilities. Okay, so now we're in loop 2. Looking really good on resources. I've got all 7 of my bombs. I haven't gotten the 7th one from the score yet, but I'm about to unlock it. And I've got 7 cherry bombs. This is where things start getting hairy. I don't feel like it's safe to push into the middle there. And so I get kind of I wanted to get down to the middle to that last bomb, but I got accidentally pushed over to the left here, and this is kind of a disaster. But I'm doing, I'm backing it up really well, and I think I'm gonna get away with this. But then those blue guys both converge at the same time, and I have to react and use a bomb, which is fine. 2-1 is one of the harder stages, so using just one bomb by this point is perfectly fine. Here I use a bomb to clear out the turrets easily, and sometimes that'll hit some of the guys to the right as well. In that case, it didn't. But because you'll notice here, because 2-1, the previous level, was so tricky on this particular run, I did end up in the situation where I got the grave. I got unlucky and I had to deal with this ghost spawning at the very beginning of 2-2. And so that's going to make this level a lot harder. But because it's a relatively easy level once you have it routed well, I think I managed to finish it, to get out of it without using any resources. Yeah. And I mean, that's the type of, right there, I'm going to rewind. This, getting to the exit here, this is a situation where a new player might make a mistake. It's especially because this ghost is on me right here, right? Like this ghost is about to hit me here. So it would be tempting to step all the way left first, but I actually step up first. As soon as I round this corner, I step up. And the reason why I do that has to do with what I was talking about blue guys and dealing with blue guys at the exit. You want him to fire in this column. I'm going to rewind a little bit. He has not reached this column yet. So if I were to step left here, by the time he got centered in this column, I would no longer be in this column. I would be in this column. And so he would have a chance then of stepping back to the left. Okay. And if he steps back to the left, then I do not have time to get to the stairs I have to kill him because he's about to fire at me. But then what if this green guy also steps left? Okay. I might have time to fire just at the blue guy, but if the green guy also steps left at the same time, I'm screwed because this ghost is on me and probably more enemies are spawning or something. So I am intentionally manipulating this blue guy here. I see that he's starting to step to the right, so I am stepping up to make him fire in this column to give myself a little bit more time, just enough time to get to the exit before he fires a second time. There's all kinds of that stuff happening all the time in this game. That's just one particularly clear example. This is another little trick that you learn that's really, really important for getting a 2-all. You have just enough time to kill a turret after you turn a corner, before its bullet hits you. So I turn the corner and I actually abuse, I try to turn up as quickly as possible and abuse that snap into position that I was talking about earlier. I don't see it's actually, when I press up, it's actually snapping me to the left a little bit as well. So it gets this is pretty precise, but if you do that properly and shoot immediately, you can just barely, like the turret, you can see that turret, the blue bullet is almost hitting me. You can just barely kill the turret, which despawns that bullet right before it hits you. And I do that a lot in this run. And yeah, the routing for this stage gets actually pretty tricky in the second loop. um, because of that bomb in the top left corner. Here I just decide to bomb because it's just too big of a massive enemies, and I accidentally I accidentally bombed again. I shouldn't have done that, but there you go. Here another relatively easy stage once you've practiced it enough. I mean, it's the second loop, so it's not actually easy, and I think I actually do use another bomb here because I don't notice that guy below me respawning quickly enough. It's just so much stuff to pay attention to and notice, right? It's just crazy. All right, here's the Hall of Hell. Here's the here's the most insane stage in the game by far. It's good to use a cherry bomb at this point, especially if you can get multiple blue guys along with the turret. And then there, I just couldn't even get into a situation where I could really use another cherry bomb. There, I actually took advantage of the fact that, so like I knew that there was a chance when I started throwing this cherry bomb. You have to start throwing the cherry bomb like way back here. You have to hold the button for quite a while before it happens. So all the way back here, when I'm picking up this gold bomb, I'm deciding to throw a cherry bomb. And I knew that there was a chance that this blue guy would step closer to me and try to fire at me, and that I would be screwed if I did not know this one thing, which is that the cherry bomb actually, when you throw it, it also has a hitbox when you throw it if there's an enemy like right on top of you like that. And so I knew that was going to kill him if he stepped right next to me like that. And so I knew that was actually safer than it might have looked. So that's another, there's just a million tricky little details. You have to be very confident in order to be consistent enough. Here's another place where I turn the corner and shoot the turret. You have to be very confident in all of your decisions to be consistent enough to not get hit once for this entire run. It's just so dense. And again, I got the bad fast ghost spawn in this level. But here I know I can just run to the exit. And I got very lucky here in 2-7, the final level. I spawned in the bottom left corner, which is that tight space that I was talking about earlier, where the ghosts often corner you in this corner, right? So it was very lucky. It was very, very lucky that I spawned here, so that I don't have to come back to this after the ghosts have spawned. And here you can also see that I kind of took advantage of the fact that the blue guys are in column 3, right? They're in an odd column, so I don't have to worry about them. I actually didn't clearly know this at this point. I didn't clearly understand this at this point, but I was starting to get an intuition of like when that applies, right? And yeah, I take a very aggressive route here through the middle because you really just have to get through this level fast. And often the bomb runs away from you in an annoying way and causes you to have to do an entire extra loop back around the level at the end here, which is exactly what happens. And so going through the middle here is a very tricky proposition. And I think a lot of people would not have played this correctly, right? Like a lot of people would have had to use a bomb right here. Okay, let's back up. So I have to shoot the blue guy here. First of all, a lot of people would have stopped to shoot this blue guy, but I know that I don't have to do that because he's down in this corner. He's not going to be a threat to me for the rest of my path to the exit. But I have to shoot this blue guy. Well, I actually made a mistake and did a shot a little too early, but I know I have to shoot this blue guy. But then a lot of people would try to shoot this red guy and then be forced to bomb. And that's a really bad bomb if you have to bomb then, because it actually doesn't reach these blue guys, which is the next threat that you have to deal with. And so then you're gonna have to shoot those guys, and then by that time, all of these guys that you killed here are respawning. And so I actually knew that this guy was going to step left here, and so that I could loop down like this and get around him like that, and that makes the rest of the level just completely easy. And I didn't even have to use that last bomb. So that is it. That's the 2-all, the world first 2-all clear of this game. At least one of the hardest games ever, at least in some sense, one of the hardest games ever. And of course I died at the beginning of loop 3 in a really stupid way. But yeah, loop 3 is just, the game is just looping at that point, right? It's just giving you the second loop over and over again, and you can keep going to try to get a high score or whatever. As far as I'm aware, the intended like ending of the game is after the second loop. It would be pretty crazy if it were after the third loop, because yeah, I don't know. For all I know, there is like a real ending, like the run actually ends after the third loop, and that would be really I might try to do that if that were the case, but I might try to do it anyway because yeah, I'm crazy. But yeah, that's it. That's Caramel Action. That's how I got the 2-all. I want to talk more about like how, pro tips. I want to give all of my secret strats, make sure I cover everything that I know about this game for people who want to learn it. Destroying geometry with a bomb feels like a really powerful tool to trivialize a hard level. That is the exact opposite of true. You might think that. Yeah, I can see how you would think that. That's a very natural thing to think. But first of all, you know the default geometry of every level, and you don't know the bombed geometry that you just happened to create. So first of all, stuff is just going to be happening that you are not ready for. You have to pay more attention to more different things to understand, to predict, right? But then also, yeah, it frees up more firing lines. So enemies are coming from more different directions. Enemies are firing at you from farther away in more cases. So it's actually really bad to bomb unless the level's like almost over. But often those are the times that it makes the most sense to bomb, is when the level's almost over. It actually makes sense if you can. Often I will try to like step away from important cover geometry before I bomb. Like if I'm cornered but I have space to step away from important geometry before I bomb, I will do that. It's really that important to have that extra cover. Yeah. So what else can I say? Okay, the first thing that comes to my mind. So this is just extra stuff for people who are playing the game themselves or are just curious about all the little details, right? This level is very strange, and I talked about how the routing for this level is really important, right? It's very important that you get this middle bomb last. But I talked about how it moves. After you've picked up all but 2 bombs, the last 2 start moving. But you'll notice the middle, maybe not just this one, maybe both of these, it's like they're programmed to always move right first. And this bomb is actually smaller than a full grid space in width. So when it moves to the right there, it actually is no longer aligned with the grid. It's no longer aligned with the grid. So now when it moves, now it goes up a tile and then down a tile, it doesn't actually show it there. Let's see if I can find another example. This is a perfect example. So it's going up and down by it moves by 1 tile at a time. But because it moved to the right first, it got misaligned with the grid, and it's no longer aligned with the grid, and so it would have to move back to the left 2 spaces to get even to the point where you can pick it up and have the stairs spawn on the right side. So it's actually helping you. The fact that it always moves to the right first is helping you quite a bit. It's making it so that this is usually going to be in a spot where you can just naively run in here like that. That would otherwise, if it hadn't gotten misaligned like that, this would have been bad. I would have picked it up before I crossed over into this 5th column, and the stairs would have spawned on the right side because I was too far to the left. But because it got misaligned in that way, I'm actually just past that halfway point at the time that I pick it up. I'm 1 step. This is the difference that I'm talking about that matters, right? I'm 1 additional tiny frame of movement to the right when I pick this up because it got misaligned like that. So the game really helps you here in that way to make the stairs spawn on the left most of the time. But often here, it's good to not take this little passage here. If the last bomb is right here, it's threatening to cross this line, okay? So if I'm right here, the last bomb is right here, which is a very common situation. It's threatening to cross over as I'm crossing right there. As I am crossing this line right here from the left to pick it up, the bomb, it's scary because the bomb could cross over this line just barely and make it so that you are to the left of this vertical line and it spawns the stairs to the right, which is terrible. So instead of moving from here to pick up that last bomb, it's good to, in many cases, if the last bomb's right here, it's good to loop around this geometry and come from above. And then sometimes, it's gonna be like going back and forth across this line, but then you can just wait for it to come back across and pick it up right here from above. So the thing that you have to realize about this stage, the bombs are always laid out in the same way. And what you have to realize about the bomb routing here is that this bomb is always in this corner by itself. So this is always going to define one endpoint of your route, right? You're always spawning at either the top or the bottom of the screen. So it just makes sense that this bomb is going to be one endpoint of your route. But if you spawn at the bottom, this right here is kind of the worst possible spawn, because you naturally want to pick up this bomb and then this bomb, but then you kind of have to go all the way back down to this one and then back up to these, which is just bad. So it actually, what I do in this situation is I will always clear the turrets out there while I have the chance, which does help a lot. Just that alone helps a lot when you're going back through. But then I'll go for this bottom right bomb first. And then I come all the way back, which that backtracking seems like it would be bad. Oh man, I already forgot the timings for the movement. The backtracking, see, this is like more of an ideal spawn. I just accidentally goofed. But yeah, I pretty much always take this route. I'm just spamming the bomb to get through the route. You see how hard this game is. Like, I just haven't played the game for like a few days and it's already destroying me on just one level. So yeah, I will always take that exact zigzag motion from this bomb to this one, up through this one, this one, this one, this one. It's always this number 2 shape, but it might be the opposite direction. So if I spawn up here, which I just did, this is again a pretty bad situation. You really want to pick up these ones first, naturally, but you have to go and pick up this one first. And then you loop, and you get into tricky situations here as well. Like, you know, like it's a little bit faster because you can pick up this bomb and still be a little bit to the left. So it's actually faster to get to this bomb from the left, and that also sets you up to be closer to this one, right? If I go like around this this section to the left, but it's safer to go to the right because, you know, there's a blue guy down here. He could step down, he could step to this space and shoot up, or he could step to this space and shoot up or whatever. And just like, you know, there's this blue guy here. So like when I get down into this space, am I going to have to shoot left to clear this blue guy? And then when I'm shooting left, then this blue guy is going to get somewhere and screw me from below. Like, it's generally safer to take the route when you're going from this way. It's safer to take the route around that way. And that also, here's something to think about all the time in this game, especially in the second loop. How are you manipulating the enemies? Like, the enemies are always trying to get into a position where they can hit you, right? So you just saw this blue guy. He was here, and then when I went over to the right, he went over here to try to shoot me. That might have just been random, actually. But in general, like, the blue guys they have a tendency to move toward you over time. Even though there's a lot of randomness to their movement, they have a tendency to move toward you over time. And you can use that to make little changes to your route in order to get them, or like pause in certain spots to try to get them to leave a choke point. There's all kinds of stuff you can do once you start thinking about that. And even I probably don't do that enough. Don't think about that enough. But yeah, you get the idea. You really, for this route though, you really want to, you know, often you can't kill that turret right there like I just did. So you are going to have to kill it when you get down here later. Here's a situation where I feel it was safe to take the left route. But yeah, like often you're going to have to turn this corner and kill this turret immediately like that, right? I feel like I could still improve my strats on this level quite a bit. So maybe I'm not in a position to give tips on this, but you know, so one thing about the cherry bombs that I didn't explain earlier, you have to hold down the shoot button, the regular, this shoot button, in order to use a cherry bomb. And so you're kind of wasting time if you do an extra shot just to use the cherry bomb like that. Instead, you want to start holding the shoot button while you're doing something else, while you're invincible from using a regular bomb, while you're invincible from, while you're not allowed to shoot because you're picking up a gold bomb, or, think about it ahead of time while you're shooting enemies. And then as you shoot the last enemy, keep holding down that shoot button. You can also just get into the habit of holding down the shoot button every time for a little bit longer than you would naturally do. And that can kind of help you. Like that can that gives you more time to realize, oh wait, I actually want to keep holding this down and use a cherry bomb here. So that's a kind of tricky thing about the controls. Okay, here's something about the tiles. The being on a tile versus on the half tile type of thing, like I was talking about earlier. Being on, it's very complicated. Like if you're trying to dodge or juke around the red guys and if you have a bunch of red guys following you, you will see me mostly walking on full grid tiles and not stopping on the halfway points because, you know, I can juke around the red guys like that, right? Whereas if I'm on the half tiles, my hitbox is vulnerable. I'm vulnerable to the red guys on two different tiles at once. Like when I'm right here, I'm vulnerable to them from the right and the left. And so if you're juking around them, like in this corner, right? Like you know that he's going to walk to the right like that. You can juke around them, but you have to be stepping from one tile to the next and not stopping at the halfway points like that. But then if you want to kill the red guys that are following you, you usually want to be on a half tile. Like I stepped down to the half tile to do that. In that case, it probably didn't really matter. But like in a situation like this, like I am, you know, my blaster is hitting two different spaces at once. So that's an advantage for me. So like offensively, right, being on the half tile is an advantage. But you then have to, if you're killing a bunch of red guys like this and you're standing on a half tile for that reason, you have to think about the blue guys, right? Because they are also, you know, offensive at range. So you're giving them an advantage on you as well. So you have to think ahead about what you're going to be vulnerable to while you're doing that. And then, yeah, so often for blue guys at range, it makes more sense to be stepping, like defensively, it makes more sense to be like I didn't step up onto the half tile intentionally there because that blue guy on the left would have shot me if I had. And now, because I stayed on the bottom row and just cleaned up those red guys there, now that gave me time and space to kill the blue guy. I mean, I paused there and that messed me up, but I would have had time to shoot the blue guy after he stepped down and I wouldn't have had to use a bomb. Knowing when a shot will hit multiple enemies seems relevant. Yeah, I think it's just a distance from each other thing. Like, yeah, enemies that are like within one tile's width of each other, like, you know, along the same axis that your shot is traveling. But I'm not 100% sure about that. But you get an intuition for it, and it feels very learnable, like by intuition. I don't think there's like some weird crazy trick to like making it hit in situations where you wouldn't think was possible or whatever. Then again, I have footage here actually of one unexplained event. Right at the end here, you can see there are, oh yeah, that's another space I often use a cherry bomb. I didn't explain that, but like if there's multiple blue guys here threatening this kind of space, and I think the turret's gonna like aim up at me, and I don't feel like I'm gonna be able to stand here and kill those guys, I'll use a cherry bomb like as I'm coming from that first bomb. That's often good, but something strange happened here, and I wonder if it was because of the cherry bomb. But I do not understand why it didn't kill. So here's what's happening. There's two blues stepping onto this same space that has the gold bomb that I'm about to pick up. And at the same time, there's a red guy coming from the left. So there's three enemies here. I know that that I can pick this up before I get hurt by the blue guys. So I pick that up and then I immediately shoot as I become vulnerable again. Or I still have iframes from picking up the gold bomb. So I know that I'm safe here. I'm confident that I'm safe here, but I'm actually not. It kills my shot. I really just don't know. I really don't know what happens here, because it seems like, does that cherry bomb kill? Maybe it's just that the cherry bomb hit at the same time as my shot and caused something weird to happen, but somehow one of the blue guys died, the other one didn't. And the red guy also died, but then this blue guy shoots me, and he actually doesn't have to shoot me because his hitbox becomes active when he shoots. That's another thing about the blue guys. I'm pretty sure that you can walk through them. They might have a really tiny hitbox. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they don't have a hitbox until they stop to shoot. Maybe it's the same as the red guys. When they stop in the middle of a tile, their hitbox is active. But yeah, all these details, all these details start to matter. Should I talk about this? What I wish were different about this game, because I like this game a lot. It's, I don't know, Derelict Star might compete with it for Game of the Year so far for me. I haven't played enough of that game to say, but I can see it being near the top of my Game of the Year list. But there are some pretty major. I have a couple of pretty major complaints. Really, I have one major complaint. There's one thing that I think really would make the difference, and that is just kind of how easy the first loop gets as you get good enough to do the second loop, right? Because you get to the point where you can get very consistent, not 100% consistent, which makes it worse. Like, you can't be 100% consistent at the first loop, so you're still dying and resetting in the first loop sometimes. But yeah, you can't really be 100% consistent because the game is so punishing. Even when you're ready to grind for a second loop clear, you're still spending most of your time in the first loop. And obviously this is a problem for the cave shmups have this exact same problem, and that's a big part of the reason why I've never done a 2-all clear of a cave shmup, and don't want to. At least the ones that I've tried. There are some that I still need to hop on. I still need to hop on Ketsui, which I think I might like a lot. I don't think they should be two separate game modes though. I like the pressure that comes from getting into the second loop, and then you have to perform, right? You have to perform under pressure because you can't just you've gotten through all of this other stuff already. Like, I like that it makes the run longer, and that increases the pressure and the nerves and stuff. But here's an easy way to solve the problem for me. I'm not gonna try to suggest like the optimal design solution or whatever, the cleanest, most elegant solution. But like, here's what would solve the problem for me. That's obvious. You make it so you choose like normal mode versus hard mode when you start a run, and normal mode ends at the 1-all, or it gives you the bad ending or whatever at the 1-all. You can't go to the second loop on normal mode. And the hard mode is because this would solve my other big problem as well. The level designs being static, it really makes for a good flow of the run. Like, every level has a particular character to it, which I described when I was talking through the stage 2 of the learning process, right? The routing and stuff. I think the levels are really well designed for what they are. Like, they have really strong, they feel very different from each other, and it creates a really nice pacing for the and like variety for the run as a whole, going through these different types of scenarios in this particular order. But it really caps the depth of the game and forces, like, if you want to have the level designs be static like that, then you kind of just have to speed the game up. Like, that's the only option that you have left after a certain point, or just keep spawning more and more enemies. And I think it would be more interesting for this game, and for most types of games. I mean, this is my preference in general, which you can see from my favorite action games of all time being stuff like Post Void and Angel Game. Well, Angel Game is a little bit different. Hard to compare there. But like Post Void is random in every way. It's random in the enemy spawns like this game, but it's also random in the level layouts. The level layouts are completely random every time. And that just adds more depth, right? That adds more stuff that you have to think about and figure out the best strategy on the fly, rather than just relying on what you know from having played the game a lot and memorizing it, right? So you can kind of address, my ideal version of this game would address both of those problems at the very least. Like, for example, if you made a hard mode where the first loop always has stages, like every stage in the first loop in the hard mode, like the stages are kind of breaking down, right? Like a bunch of a random set of blocks is just gone, right? And so there's new paths that you have to think about, or there's some kind of change that makes them more dynamic like that, so that when the game is slower like this in the first loop, you are forced to think about more things than usual. But then in the second loop, the levels can just be, and then you have to, like I said, you would have to do that first loop in that way to get to the second loop at all. But then the second loop can be more static like this because it's so fast. It works. It works okay for it works pretty well for with the static level designs. But I think that would be good for a lot of reasons, because like even if you're married to the idea that the level designs are completely static, like this game has situations where the level designs are not static, right? Like it has the situations where you bomb, you're forced to bomb in a way that you didn't plan, and now the level design is completely different. And the game, that in a sense is like the deepest part of the game as it is now, right? The situations where, especially when you're in loop 2 and you have to bomb, but like you have to bomb and you destroy a bunch of geometry, and now you just have to deal with this unfamiliar geometry and enemies threatening you along completely different lines than usual. Like that is the part of the game that has the most depth, but it's so rare. It happens so rarely that you don't get to practice that level of depth and that level of difficulty in this game very often. Like if you wanted to get better at those types of situations, which really past a certain point, that is the best way to get better at the game, is to practice those types of situations. You kind of would have to go into practice mode and like run around every time. Every life you'd have to like go and bomb in a different spot, and like it would be really awkward to like try to practice that kind of thing intentionally. So yeah, the game just doesn't really facilitate efficient like improvement and learning past a certain point. Like around the point that I'm at, where I'm pretty comfortable with the second loop now. I can still get more consistent at it, but even in the second loop, like most of the time I'm pretty comfortable. Like if you break down like what percent of the time am I like freaking out and like really thinking hard about like how to deal with a completely new situation, or how to deal with a tricky, like, oh, this enemy being here and this enemy being here, I have to figure out a solution to this weird problem. Like that's happening really rarely for me at this point. So yeah, the game feels much less dense for me at this point, much less dense with like interesting improvement, with learning how to deal with new situations and stuff like that. So that's why that kind of gets at why I like super, super random games like Post Void for scoring. It has a much higher skill ceiling, and you can go much deeper and get to, the deeper you get into a really beautiful game, the more beautiful it gets, I think. And yeah, getting to a point where you have to be solving so much trickier problems, and yeah, it's just great. I find that really, really rewarding in a game like Post Void. So this game doesn't quite let me do that in the same way. It's a little bit more grindy, especially because you have to go through the first loop, and so that's kind of my major two complaints with the game. Like the slow start, having to do the first loop every time, which is easy past a certain point, and then not being as random as I would like. And also the not being as random as I would like, it also kind of hurts the experience on the front end. Compared to something like Post Void, some amount of like memorization is important for this game, right? Like even though you're not memorizing a static route through each level, you have to like, you have to come up with creative, like different alternative routes for different situations for each level, which is really good because of the enemies being random. Despite that, you do have to memorize a lot of stuff over time. You have to know exactly which spaces you're safe from all directions. Like you don't want to have to think. You don't want to have to think when you're in the level. Like everything moves so fast in this game. You do not have time to stop and look around and think like, okay, what am I safe from all directions from each particular spot that I'm passing through? Like every spot that you're passing through, it needs to be automatic. You need to just know where the safe spots are, where whatever. And that's affected by like every little, small platform versus full block. You memorize the level layouts over time, and that makes a big difference. And so the game, first of all, the memorization can be a bit of a chore. It doesn't really feel like that in this game, to be honest. The memorization doesn't feel like a chore nearly as much as in something like a cave game, because there is so much to learn that's not that, right? There's so much to improve at just from learning the enemies as well, that by the time you feel bottlenecked by memorization, you have kind of already memorized most stuff. But there is still some amount of like memorization work, and like for me the red guy's movement felt like kind of memorization work. But maybe someone will figure out exactly what the pattern with those guys is, and then that'll make it feel less that way. But yeah, even if you don't think of it as memorization work, I think it's still a flaw in the game to make it so that so much of what gets you to the next skill level, gets you to the next, type of score tier, so much of that is about just like learning this arbitrary information, like about how this particular level is laid out. Because that's just about time, right? It's just about how much time you're putting into the game. Like this is something I don't like about cave games. Like it's so memorization heavy that when I look at people who have better scores and better clears than me in cave games, it feels like the difference there is 90% just time investment and maybe 10% skill, right? Like I'm sure I would build some skills as I did that, but it's not really a skill issue on my part that I can't get a 2-all in Dodonpachi or whatever. Like it's mostly a time issue. Like I don't want to sit there for 100 hours, like memorizing every level. Like I just don't. And whereas, something like Angel Game, that's like a pure skill game, right? I mean, okay. Angel Game has the randomness problem, which is a different problem, but you could think about something like Dodonpachi, high level Dodonpachi being like 90% work, 10% skill, and maybe a tiny amount of randomness as well, or like luck as well. And then you could think of Angel Game as being like 90% skill, 10% luck. I mean, any particular run is highly luck based, but what your PB is in Angel Game, the luck tends to even out pretty nicely over, hundreds or thousands of attempts. So yeah, this game is a little too like, static arcade, even though this is very random compared to most arcade games, even compared to most like beat 'em ups, this is very random, and beat 'em ups tend to be more random than like shmups. But even though that's the case, I would still like for it to be more random, just because it raises the skill cap so much, and it makes it more about skill. It makes the game more about skill rather than work. I feel like there've got to be more pro tips I can squeeze in here. There's just tricky little things in every level, man. Like, okay, here's something. I often like to cherry bomb the middle. So like the two really tricky parts of 2-7 are the bottom left corner and this middle space. The middle space, because enemies tend to cluster in there. Blue guys and green guys often cluster in here, and then you only have this one little space to fire at them from, right? Like if you're over here and you need to go this way, and there's a bunch of guys in here, you only have this one little space to fire at them from, and so you kind of have to like stand here and shoot once and then back down into here and wait for their bullets to pass through here, and then go back up here and shoot again, and then like there might be a green guy's grenade here, like preventing you from even doing that. Like it's very easy to get stuck trying to break into the middle space for a really long time. Any time where you have that kind of situation where there's like a bunch of guys and you only have one space, like this happens in 2-1 at the top of the screen as well. You only have one space to fire at them from. It's good. It can be good at least, or like in the middle of 2-1 as well. It can be good to use a cherry bomb. So you should always be thinking when you're down here, like picking up this bomb, if you're going to go into here next, if you're planning to go into the middle next, think about using a cherry bomb from here on the middle. But then you have to be careful and see that there's not going to be a blue guy firing at you down this line while you are trying to throw a cherry bomb and are vulnerable. But yeah, typically the route that I take, the routing for this stage varies the most, so I should really try to explain this. If I'm on this side, if I start on this side, I always try to go down first. Sometimes I'm like here and a bunch of enemies start spawning over here, and I decide like, okay, I'll go left first in this case because there's so many enemies down here. And that's something that's something you should think about as well. You need to be ready to adapt your route, to wait until the very last second to choose your route, because enemies start spawning in after you spawn in. And, like right before you start moving, enemies are still spawning in. And you need to think about, like, especially in like 2-1, I'm often like choosing certain levels. I'm often choosing my route I'm changing what route I'm going to take at the very last second, because more enemies, all the enemies are on one side or whatever, and I want to do the other side first, because that just saves a lot of time. But yeah, usually here I'm going down first, and I have to do this stupid trick. Often it's good to fire down the middle to start to, in that kind of situation, to start to clear it out. This is very hard to explain on the fly. Here I'm going down because I'm far enough to the left, and I'm like waiting because I don't want the blue guy to get in my way. Although I think I could have probably stepped down there and forced that. I don't know, this is so complicated. The middle doesn't look very threatening right now. Now it does, so now I'm pissed. But I can just do this, and I know that those guys will get pushed away. The ghosts will get pushed away, and I'll have a good path into the middle. Now this is really annoying because I have to come down for this one, but that's good. Here I know I can skip. Just kidding. I thought I could safely skip the skip killing the turret there. It's good to skip killing these turrets that are like in corners that you're not gonna have to return to when possible, because it just saves time, right? But in that case, the bomb moved into the turret, right? Another thing to know about the turrets, by the way, is you can actually step into them. But yeah, you can actually stand on top of them as they fire. You can make them fire and then turn, and you can go kind of move through them like that, which is very rarely useful, but it can be useful. Oh, here's something. This is pretty obvious. Most people probably figure this out naturally, but you know, using those iframes, there was another red guy there, right, following him, so it didn't really make sense. But like right here, like using these iframes from picking up the gold bomb to walk through a red guy in a much more lenient way than what you would normally have to do, or to move through a ghost. Often there's like a ghost in this level specifically. This ghost will often start coming at you this way, you know, from here to here as you're coming from this way. And often it makes sense to wait right here just a second, or right here, so that you're not vulnerable from through this line, right? Wait right here and then walk and pick this up as the ghost is getting to this gold bomb, and then you can just walk right through the ghost and not worry about it. That is something that often helps a lot. So one thing I didn't mention at all is when you get to the certain score thresholds, I think it's like 2,000, 6,000, 10,000, and 16,000. Those are the score thresholds where you get a new bomb. You get a new like regular bomb. When you get to those score thresholds, you also get invincibility for a little bit. It does the same type of thing as this, where he like holds the something above her head, and you're invincible for a little bit. You can actually use that. I have used it once. Like if you anticipate that, like you're a god gamer, if you're like actually looking at the score counter and anticipating that and doing it and setting it up intentionally to use it. But you know, if you notice it happening, you can like use it very intentionally, and you know, you can still use it intentionally, like in the moment, like react to the fact that it is happening and take advantage of it. You get some iframes, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have to like adapt and just do crazy routes that you've never done before because some crazy thing happened. You always have to be ready for anything. Always have to be ready to bomb, like in a situation like that other blue guy blocked the shot from the blue guy I actually needed to hit, so I just needed to bomb there. Yeah, I guess 2-1. 2-1's pretty hard. I didn't even talk about 2-5 that much, actually. So 2-1, this is just the deep wisdom for the real pro gamers at this point. But like at some point in 2-1, you have to cross the top there, right? The top part of the screen. And that is one of the big scary points. Like often you'll get stuck like down here. Even if you start down here, like you'll get stuck down here for a really long time, like, and you'll just be slowly trying to push your way up here. But then at some point you have to realize that it's safe enough to risk it and just start walking past the red guys, right? And usually around here you can juke around the red guys pretty well. And then up here, usually the red guys will not go up to the top row. They'll try to move through this way. And so usually you can walk past most stuff up here unless there's like a blue guy in this top column. And usually you can get past the red guys in a way where they'll be far enough behind you that you have time to stop and shoot once before they catch up to you. By the way, if there's a huge trail of red guys following you, it's actually good to, this is hard to explain, but it's good to stop and shoot any blue guys or green guys that you need to kill, like, or turrets. It's good to do that. This is kind of relevant in like 2-6. Like once you get them all on you like that, like here I already have enough distance between the red guys and me, or at least I did before I like hesitated for a second before I paused. I already have enough distance that I can stop and do a shot towards in a different direction, right? A shot at like a turret or whatever before they won't have time to catch up to me, and I'll be able to keep moving. You actually want to do that sooner rather than later. Because of how the red guys move, it then lets them spread out from you again sooner. So like, okay, if I were to wait here, this is really hard to explain, but yeah, like in this situation, if you can safely shoot this turret from here, you kind of want to do it like immediately like that. In that case, I couldn't because both of the green guys were in the way. But yeah, waiting until this point, first of all, I did the movement wrong. Or I failed the trick, you could say. Anyway, hopefully you get my point. You want to like shoot other stuff sooner if possible, because then the red guys get like pretty close to you, but not close enough to hit you. And then they will move and they'll like choose to move in the opposite direction. Like when they're in that situation where they're close to you, but not close enough to hit you, they turn in the opposite direction. They have a tendency to turn the opposite direction and give you space. And so then you have space again, and then you can use that space again to shoot something else that's in your way in front of you. But back to 2-1. There's a situation where I left the gold bomb right next to me for emergency iframes if I need it. Like if I'm shooting up at a bunch of blue guys, a big mass of enemies there, like I will often leave that bomb so that I can pick it up at the very last second if there's a shot coming toward me and I don't want to use a bomb and I don't have time to step out of the way. That's a good thing to do. But yeah, often here you get kind of cornered, and it's like you're killing like a million things to get out of here. And you kind of have to just get here and wait until a situation where it seems reasonably safe to walk past. And a good thing about this route, you know, coming from this direction to here and then coming down here, like I said, it's good. It's very often good to stop like around this area and clear everything above you, because there's a bunch of reds coming. You kind of want to clear the blues that are up here as well before you go into the middle, because otherwise the blues can very easily wander back to here and start shooting you while you're in the middle. And then by that time, like reds and greens are going to be in the way as well, and you might not be able to kill the blues. So it's a good time and place to clear them before you try to break into the middle section here. But also, it's good because of the columns thing. Like I was saying, like blues will not shoot you. If you're on a halfway tile here, blues will not shoot you when you're on this, when they're in the column 3, okay? And because you came from the right, the blues almost certainly also came from the right. So the blues that are behind you, and along with the reds, they're more likely to come to column 3 and take a while to wander over to column 4, where they're actually going to shoot down at you. So it's very safe to clear from here, and you can often hit the blues before they even, even though if you have to shoot 3 or 4 times to clear everything in these 2 columns, like you can usually do that before the blues shoot at you because of this weird column thing. And then try to break into the middle. But yeah, breaking into the middle is really tricky. I very often find myself using a bomb in that spot. And maybe there's like a better routing thing that you can do somehow. But I mean, obviously you can use cherry bombs. Yeah. But usually enemies are like threatening you from a lot of different places at this point. Like it's just tough. Here's a situation where, so there's 2 bombs in the kind of middle column here, right? In this level. So you want to try to pick up one of those last. You really don't want to pick up one of these last. And you really don't want to pick up one of these last either, because it's just too much distance to potentially have to travel to get to the stairs. You want to get one of these 2 last. This one last is like not the end of the world, but yeah, save one of these 2 for last. But in this situation, because the middle is so hard to break into later in the level, if it's open at the beginning like this, I will always, if I spawn at the bottom like this, I will always go and grab the middle one first. But then I know that I do not want to turn right here. Like normally I would turn right here and go ahead and pick up this bomb. I do not want to do that. I intentionally want to, I accidentally pressed up and it cycled the menu before I pressed Z there. But you understand what I'm saying. I will loop around the top in that situation that I was just in and come back and pick that one up last. And sometimes it'll wander into the middle anyway, which is annoying, but you know. Yeah, really waiting as long as possible to kill enemies is something that I maybe have not emphasized enough. Even in the first loop, you'll see me like waiting until a red guy is like right on top of me to kill him. Like as I'm walking toward him, even though I'm killing all the enemies as I go in the first loop, much more so than the second loop, like I'm waiting till the very last second to minimize the number of new enemies that are spawning. Here's something cool about this game. Like, it's not just iframes from the picking up a gold bomb. You also get a screen pause, like a freeze frame type of situation. So you can see stuff and react to it. And you can take things into account that normally would be happening too fast and you wouldn't be able to react to it. So like in this case, I saw that this next gold bomb, at the time that I picked up the second to last gold bomb, I was not sure if I was going to have to loop back around to the left and come at this last gold bomb from the top. But at the time that I did pick up the second to last gold bomb, the last one had started moving to the right. And so I can use that information and I know that I have time to go to the right before it comes back to the left and crosses that line, that vertical line. That's very important that I was talking about earlier. Yeah, in this situation, you just want to make sure that this whole bottom two rows are clear before you try to cherry bomb, because a blue guy could spawn and screw you while you're trying to cherry bomb. So here's something: when you are coming up like this, when you're coming up from here, you want to actually leave some enemies up if possible. That was a bad example because it wasn't a situation where I really could realistically do that. But like, this is a situation where you can usually leave. It's so hard to talk and do this at the same time because it's really tricky to do what I'm saying that you should do. It takes a lot of focus and skill. But yeah, if you can walk past red guys here, walk past blue guys here, if you can leave a blue guy down here in like the bottom, I'm pointing at my screen, but I should use my cursor. If you can leave a blue guy down here, like say you're down here and a blue guy spawns like at this point, he spawns in this corner, I am waiting as long as possible to kill that guy because I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to get out before he even steps up into this column, right? Because if I can have one blue guy here, that is one less blue guy that's threatening me for the entire rest of the level, because down here he is basically useless. And he will try to wander toward me, and he'll probably eventually wander up to here and threaten me from up here if I'm like right here, but that's not that big of a deal. It's much better than him being like over here in the way. So yeah, and same with like guys that you can walk past like up here. Like if you're walking from here, trying to get back up to this bomb and then into here, like this turret should be clear because you bombed it from below. So if you can like hug this corner and then come into this square and avoid a blue guy who's like over here, or avoid some red guys that are coming down this way, like just walk right past the red guys by predicting their movement. If you can do that kind of thing and leave more enemies behind you, that is really, really good, because this part can be scary, like crossing over in here, and this last part can be scary if a lot of blue guys are spawning right at the end near the stairs on the left. One thing that lets you think less about the blue guys threatening you as you're trying to like walk to the exit without killing stuff, if you do kind of a snake pattern, like let me just bomb this out so that I can have space to demonstrate. If you do a pattern like this, like one full tile, I did that very poorly, but if you can do like one full tile, one full tile at a time movement in each direction like this, blue guys will never threaten you from any direction unless you literally walk into them. That is always a safe way to move. They'll try to shoot you in one row, but then you'll move into the next row. They'll try to shoot you in one column, and then you move into the next column, like just in time. So I will often do that kind of movement just to make it brainless as I'm running to the exit when possible. Like often red guys and green guys, or not green. Yeah, often red guys and grenades on the floor make it complicated. Yeah, 2-5 is probably, this is probably the last thing I need to talk about. So this is kind of what I was talking about like stepping one grid space at a time to clear it out, right? Yeah, you want to try to keep it clear. You want to try to keep it relatively clear. Here I know that I have to wait here for those to explode, and so I'm trying to use that time to cherry bomb. Here you can walk past, you're far enough away from that turret that you can just walk past it. And that is in fact a good thing to do. Just take a lot of practice of like walking back and forth and clearing this area out, right? Just try to do this as safely as you can and as quickly as you can over and over again, and you will eventually figure it out. And you know, sometimes it's good to stand on the half tiles. But the safest way to do this is always to stop on the tiles and just do like one in each column. Like that is always 100% safe. But then, yeah, if you can, you know, clear more faster if you stop on the half tiles sometimes when it makes sense, like that. Like that. The routing for this stage, I mean, it's pretty much I just go from one end to the other, but sometimes one of the ones like kind of in the middle of the screen is just so blocked off by so many enemies. Like, you know, sometimes I'll get into a situation where I have to bomb, like if I have to bomb right here, then imagine that these enemies aren't here, right? I had to bomb right here and these enemies aren't here. And instead there's like a bunch of enemies around here. In a situation like this, I will often go to this bomb, this gold bomb before this gold bomb. But typically I'm just going from top to bottom. And, you know, for the last two, the order kind of depends on how they're moving and how the enemies are arranged. But usually you just kind of have to do top to bottom, right? But yeah, sometimes I will change the order up a little bit on this level because of the gold bombs moving around, and also because of me breaking the geometry because I'm forced to bomb so often on this level. But yeah, this is really tricky. Like, you have to be able to cherry bomb in lots of different types of situations. You have to be able to cherry bomb a lot. You have to be able to regular bomb in a lot of different situations. Like, you have to, yeah. This level just takes a lot of practice and a lot of willingness to press the bomb button. And again, this is where the knowledge of which column the enemies have advantage in, right? The blues will shoot you from the even column. So this column, this column and this column, blues in those columns are scarier than blues in this column or this column because of the half tile thing. And this is where you can really, really take advantage of that if you're better at it. If you're better at that than I am currently. But yeah, I think that about covers it. I think we kind of talked about every level. I think I've probably covered most of the kind of tricks at some point. At this point, I'm literally talking to no one, but presumably people on YouTube will care about the about this as a tutorial or as a guide. Because I think a lot of people, like I said, there's kind of a puzzly difficulty to figuring out how this game works. Like solving this game for me was kind of puzzly. Or I had that kind of science, like you have to want to experiment and figure out exactly how things work. And I think a lot of people who would otherwise like this kind of game found it too hard, or like found aspects of it, like didn't figure out those aspects of it, right? Because they don't like puzzly kind of games. They just want a good action game. And so I think my hope is that by putting all this information out there, a lot more people will want to take it a lot more seriously.